going to be talking about Arkham Asylum. Now, everyone I know has made a video on this. I'm not coming in breaking the mold, making a video on Arkham Asylum because it's an oversaturated video. I know, everyone's made one. It's kind of nausea at this point. But, hey man, I put a poll up on my community tab. They wanted to see this video, so here it is. So we're going to do my thoughts on Arkham Asylum, the big Batman game, the first Batman game that was actually good. Well, that's not true, because Batman Begins was the first Batman game that was actually good. It was the movie tie-in. If you haven't played it, it's fantastic. One of these days I'll get a copy and then make a video on it, and you guys can touch yourself to something other than the Arkham games. It'll be fantastic. You'll really get a good feeling. But one of the really things that kind of annoyed me in this game are these walking sections. Now, this early portion I kind of skipped through because God, was it boring. It was like a snooze fest, and I get it, it's trying to set atmosphere, and I'm sure that a better creator than me who does like retrospectives would like tell you how this, like the semen dripping on the walls is like meaningful to the greater narrative. But all I'm seeing as I'm walking through this is all of these people are probably gonna die. This game's rated M, it's filled with bad guys from Batman, they're all gonna die. Which begs the question, you know, if you went to the Punisher's asylum of villains, it'd be a graveyard because he kills all of them. He actually gets the job done. Now, is it bad that Batman doesn't kill? Yes it is, because how many people have died because of the Joker? Like, right here he's got him like, oh, look how tough I am. Yeah, you're real tough, but he ends up killing like 80,000 people. The dude's like a genocidal maniac, and you just keep letting it happen. And I know, well, killing is bad. Well, he's a vigilante, and that's against the law too, because if we're going to go on bad, I mean, him taking the law into his own hands is pretty bad, if we're going to be like drawing lines. But one thing I want to highlight early on in this game is how hot Harley Quinn is in this game. They didn't hold anything back on the development costs of her breasts. And I mean, the fact that on like her hips, you can see the underwear from her G-string like riding up. She's got to have that thing, like both lips must be have those underwears by death grips. Those lips are biting that underwear. You can just tell. They have a smile down there like the Joker's, baby. That's for sure. But she is like top tier, and that's something to say considering the next Rocksteady game she looks like a beat ass Margot Robbie. Like Margot Robbie was hot as Harley Quinn. What they have in the Suicide Squad game, beat ass version. Like, if she did a bunch of crack, that would be the Harley Quinn we have now. So, it sucks that Rocksteady's, like, stepping down from actually putting cool design into their games. But whatever, man. I'm not here to, like, talk about the Suicide Squad. I'm here to talk about Batman. And right away, like I've already kind of mentioned, this game has atmosphere. Damn, does this game have atmosphere. You truly feel like you were on an island like Alcatraz, which is Arkham, and it feels great in everything you're doing, like from the detective modes to the way that everything is just so grimy, like when Harley Quinn jumps down and you feel the fear from the other police officers around you and the panic of what's actually going on, because this place is just packed to the brim with awful people. Even though if it was the Punisher, they'd all be dead. It's still like, yeah, he doesn't kill, so now you gotta put those people somewhere. So when these big moments are happening, they feel real. They feel like you are actually chilling there with Batman. And when you're doing the moments like these stealth sections and you're feeling mobile and you feel like the very calculated Batman, even though when you glide kick, it's annoying that everyone in the entire room goddamn sees you. It's like, oh, I can't stealthily kick somebody in the face to sleep. And the fact that when you glide kick somebody, it just doesn't instantly knock them out is kind of stupid. The fact that I have to punch them again. If somebody's falling from the ceiling and then just kicking you in the face, you're gonna go night-night time. There is not gonna be a round two for your ass. And when I saw this cutscene, when I was walking through it, I was like, okay, we're gonna be doing some Scarecrow stuff. When I see people screaming and gas in a room, I mean, it's pretty blatantly obvious what you're gonna be doing. This might surprise all of you, but this is the first time I had played this game. I thought, hell, I own this game. I haven't played it. I hate the Spider-Man combat. And I know that the Spider-Man combat came from the Arkham game, so I figured I wouldn't like these games. So going through this game, I kind of was figuring things out along the way. And the story, as good as it isn't anything groundbreaking, right? You have different villains, they're doing their iconic shit, and it's great to see, don't get me wrong, but, like, it's gonna play out formulaically because of, like, I watched the animated series, bro. I know how this shit works. I know the Scarecrow's gonna be making you see things that aren't really there. So when I saw Gordon on the ground, I'm like, oh, that's Gordon. That's not really Gordon, though. I know what's going on. And then the walls started, like, warping, and, whoa, crazy stuff's happening. And I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. This is how I envisioned a good Batman game would be. It's the stuff like this, and as much as I hated the walking stuff at the beginning of the game, some of it kind of started winning me over, like, going into this area when it's setting the atmosphere. I did like it, especially when a lot of the stuff in this game when it comes to gameplay wise really aren't for me, especially the combat. It's not as bad as Spider-Man's. There is some weight behind the punches and you do feel every impact, but it's still not my favorite style of combat. I always liked more of a hack and slash, fast-paced combat, but I do like the stealth stuff, so it's a double-edged sword. It's the same thing with Spider-Man. I hated the regular combat, but the stealth stuff was fun. And right here, I was like, Mommy, Daddy, no, you're dead. And it's like, come on, Batman, get over it. Go see a therapist. I get it that you're busy being the Batman, but really, Mommy, Daddy issues still? And then the Scarecrow jumped out, and I'm sure there's some, like, little weak-willed person, like, got scared at that moment. For me, I was like, come on, man, I saw that coming. Then we come to these weird Scarecrow platforming sections. Now, these were absolute AIDS. I thought they were stupid. I thought they were tedious. They wore on my patience. And it's stuff like this where I'm like, we're sacrificing atmosphere for gameplay. Like, I feel like the developers are like, yeah, this'll get them. This is gonna be fucking hype. But for me personally, I did not have fun with this. I found it tedious. I found it annoying. I felt like if I wasn't perfectly, like, 1,000% right behind something, where even, like, a sneeze, he could find me, I was getting kind of annoyed. He'd find me every once in a while. It wasn't like I took too long on these areas because they weren't that bad, but they were just a little annoying. And every time I'd start to get annoyed with this game, I'd go into a new area and start stealth taking people out. And this shit was fun. This is where the game hooked me. And that kind of sucks because I'm not the biggest fan of, like, stealth shit. And I forgot, this is the part I wanted to highlight just because, like, watch Batman just straight up clock a bitch. But he's too scared to kill a bad guy. He'll beat women, but he won't put a bullet in like a genocidal maniac. He won't use the fact to save a greater cause to kill these guys. No, he'll put them back in jail where they'll escape 47 times and cause more problems all the time. He'll put a bat cave underneath an asylum to watch it, just in case anything goes wrong. I always prepare in case something like this happens. You know what would have been the ultimate preparation, Batman? Putting a fucking 9mm round between their heads. That would have been preparation. That would have solved the root issue. And people are like, well, that doesn't sell comic books. Or like when you play a game and you say it's got spongy combat. Well, what do you want it to be? Just one hit? No. I want it to be fucking logical. Like, the Punisher made me realize when I was a kid. I used to read Batman, Spider-Man, and I started reading Blade, Punisher, Ghost Rider, and I started to realize, wow, you know, their villains don't come back because they put them in the fucking ground. And when I see him punching all these guys endlessly, because he's just like an old dude in a cape at this point, who's beat the hell down, he's just good at kung fu, and I'm like, bro needs a Glock. Bro needs a Glock, because I know at this point, where I'm showing you right here, I'd seen like 15 to, anywhere between 20 to 100 people dead. In this, like, the whole workforce are dead. And you know what Batman does? He punches them and puts them to... And I know it seems like I'm really hating on this game when I actually had an absolute blast, because every time I did get into combat, I expected to hate it. I really did. I fully expected to hate this game as much as I really dislike Spider-Man. And I don't hate Spider-Man, but I fully dislike it. But when I actually got down to the brass tacks of the combat in this, there was enough different animations, and every time you hit, the screen like moved, and you felt like you were cracking somebody's skull open. And that's cool. That to me was fun. Because like I said, and I know I keep bringing up Spider-Man in a lot of videos when I talk about superhero stuff, but it's really the only game other than the Guardians of the Galaxy game that's kind of came out. I mean, we're not going to talk about like the whatever that Gotham Knights crap was, because it kind of was a sleep fest. But for the most part, this was the last great superhero game series until the Spider-Man games. And so I'm going to draw comparisons, especially when it comes to the combat in this game. It is the beacon between the two. It is the Spider-Man is almost a reinvigoration of this style of game, but with a brighter, sunnier motif. And that brighter, sunnier motif, I think, does this type of combat an injustice. Because I was having fun with that combat in this game, but in Spider-Man I don't have much fun with it, and I think it is the atmosphere. I think it is the character, because the character of Batman is very slow and methodical and parries and dodges and gauges his enemy, when Spider-Man just kind of bounces around and beats the hell out of people. That's the difference of their style in the comic books, in the movies. It's just that to put a through line of their combat just doesn't make any sense. And again, the whole Scarecrow thing, I get the dead parents thing. It's always the dead parents thing, but this was the only one that actually hit me, you know? When you're walking as Baby Bruce dealing with his parents' loss, I was like, this hits home. Seeing bodies in a body bag, I was like, okay, we're doing the dead parents thing. And I get it, as Batman, we're always going to do the dead parents thing, but that was a time that I actually felt it, only to follow it up with another shitty goddamn Scarecrow. I don't even know what to call these sections. I was going to call them like 2D platforming sections, but this one threw me into third person. I mean, I did get to fight some cool skeletons. That was a win. But when the whole section's kind of boring, I mean, yeah, it's atmospheric, but when the portion itself is just kind of irritating, is it really that great? So mainly, other than like the cool little Baby Bruce part, these just seemed to break up the cool gameplay that I already had. It seemed to like ruin any momentum the game was bringing me. So every time I got to one of these sections, it was just kind of like I turned my brain off and I just went through the motions. And I'd get a little bit of irritate every time he'd catch me, and I'd have to see the death screen, and I'm like, oh, I gotta keep doing this. Because like I said, it just kind of turned my brain off. It wasn't like, oh, I want to learn, I want to get deeper into the asylum, I need to figure out what the Joker's doing, because like, yeah, he's gonna be the bad guy, yeah, he's gonna try to like destroy Gotham, but I want to know the ins and outs, I want to like dive into this mystery. But then the Scarecrow parts pull me out of that, just so I can have like mommy and daddy issues for a little bit. I don't know, it wasn't for me. It's like not bad, it's just not great, you know? It's like, let me get back to Harley, let me get back to the Joker. I whooped Bane's ass, which I put the boss fight of that in. It was an okay boss fight. The boss fights in this game, there's only one great one, I would say. There's only really one great boss fight, and we'll get to that. Every other boss fight was just kind of mid. But here is one other thing. Like, another thing, I'm bringing the Suicide Squad back just because I recently saw the trailer, and I'm not going to put the picture of her in the Suicide Squad in, but they made her a chick, and like Harley's weirdly, not a chick, a kid, and Harley's weirdly flirting with her because they made Harley and Poison Ivy lesbian for each other all of a sudden. But like, this Poison Ivy was peak. Like, look at her. You got peak Harley Quinn looking at peak Poison Ivy, where like plants are covering her vagina, and then you got Harley Quinn with her panties getting eaten by her pussy, and you got these two like staring off, and they're like, oh, we got a weird like villain relationship. And I'm like, okay, I vibe with this. Women stick together, and now women eat each other out is kind of the narrative that's moved on. I mean, we all knew they did it in college, but now it's getting like mainstream. It's mainstream. They don't grow out of it. It's just a normal thing. But there you go. You got her fucking plant panties, and now she's gonna be a full-on force. And they knew how nice they made the asses look, because like when they pull her out of Arkham, like when she's all beat, they show you her ass again at the end of the game. They like fully know how good of an ass model they made. And that's kind of where it comes down to what this game did right, and why it's so legendary, and why it has the esteem it does, is because almost every single character that they made in this game and portrayed was the way it was portrayed in like the Frank Miller comic books, the way it was portrayed in like the animated series. It was a true perfection when it came to all of the different little details throughout this game. They really did know the old, like the good Batman comics, the good era. They really pulled from that because they wanted to make as great of a Batman game they could do. And I see a lot of things now trying to co-opt each other, right? They're trying to scrap the iconic era and push this new modern era onto you, and it's like, I don't give a shit about that. I want to see the legendary villains that I grew up with, the ones I saw from the cartoons. I want to see it now in a game, and I want that. And this game delivered on it. It truly did, and it did it in a way that also, like, stretched out what it could do with narratively. Even though I'm kind of, like, against the watch a bunch of cutscenes type of guy, the cutscenes never felt too long. They never felt too intrusive. Everything felt like you had control. You really felt like you were the driving force in this story, which, unlike a lot of games out there anymore, where the game kind of feels like you're a portion of a movie. You're riding this roller coaster, except for you get to change the music during the roller coaster. The only reason I say that is there's literally a roller coaster where you pick the music along or while you're riding it, so you get more of an interactive experience. And that's kind of how I feel video games are anymore. They're interactive experiences instead of a video game. And this game, first and foremost, was a video game. Now, I do see how later people looked at this game as an example of like, oh, look at the storytelling in this. And we can do that in these modern games. But what they don't realize is this game never really took the controller out of your hand that much. It mainly, like, moved you along the story, but you felt like an integral part of it. Everything else I've played that kind of is trying to recapture this feels like it's just ripping everything out of your hands. Because even like the boss fights in this game, they're boss fights. You are playing them as long or as long or as short as you want to play them. Because even though a lot of the boss fights aren't great in this game, they're not here to facilitate dialogue, which a lot of games anymore are. The boss fight's not a boss fight, it's a quick time event hidden behind like shiny cutscenes, and it's like those are there to facilitate a cutscene, to facilitate dialogue. These games, older games, even though they were still kind of quick timey at times, they were still trying to facilitate the boss fight. And like this stuff right here, where I was fighting along with these two giant monsters, is kind of like a mini boss fight. You can beat the boss fight faster if you knock one down, get on his shoulders, have him beat the other guy, and you can like pit them against each other, and you can blast through the boss fight, or you can just like pick them off and do them one by one. You do have that option, and that's still a lot better than a lot of these modern games. And the fact that like every one of these side villains doesn't ever feel like you're getting pulled out of the main story. It's really genius how they were able to craft this. And it wasn't like I had to go to a different part of the city to do this, because this game is it does have open world-ish or like ish sections, but it's really a very linear style game. It very much pushes one story through. You go different areas, push through that area, move on to the next area. Very linear-esque style, instead of the open world like nausea that we've been put through in today's day and date. Everything needs to be an open world game, even Halo. And I really liked that game, but Halo never needed to be open world. Do I enjoy it because I can be Spider Chief? Absolutely, but it's unnecessary. And later in the game, what I did thought was really kind of cute is the fact that they reversed it. Again, another decent thing that I got from the Scarecrow things, which sucks because the Scarecrow, when you're actually dealing with the Scarecrow, the parts suck, but the atmospheric stuff, the story stuff you get from it, being able to play as the Joker, even if it's for a very, very minuscule amount of time. I wish that the game would have actually expanded on this idea and went with like, oh, well, when you escape as the Joker, you got to deal with some cards every once in a while, and you don't actually like play as the Joker, because they have like a challenge section where you can actually use the Joker's combat, and I think it would have been a cool reprieve from the regular gameplay instead of just this weird Scarecrow sections that kind of intrude into the actual story, and I felt like really never gave me anything of substance. They just kind of felt like side quests, but stuck in the regular story. So when I actually did get to this final Scarecrow boss fight, and it was turning on lights while I fought enemies. If you want a good boss fight in the game, just one thing you should know is you should never have to throw in extra enemies. It's never necessary. It always feels like it's in the way. This game loved to do that. It was like, we made a bad boss fight. It was way too simple. How do we fix it? Oh, let's throw in random generic enemies. And you're like, all right, guys, come on. And the enemy variety in this game is so goddamn generic. It is the same. Like, the villain variety, great. Top tier, S tier. I mean, we're talking like, if this was Pornhub, they would be the trending porn star of the month, right? When we're talking about villain selection. When we're talking about enemy variety, we're like mid enemy variety. It's all the same goon. And then when you do get a different version of the goon, it's like a skinnier version or like a buffer version. You really don't get much when it comes to terms of variety. But even with the top tier enemy selection and how great they're worked into the game, people like some of the side villains, you kind of find out who they are. Like Killer Croc, you see him a couple times early on, and then you get this like section where you're going through the sewers and you're like, ooh, I'm gonna have a boss fight against Croc. I know it's gonna be like the Bane boss fight, but I still want to do it. I want this, and I needed this. And I kind of had a feeling when I put explosives on the ground, I was going to drop him through the floor and maybe get the drop on him and get like a cool fight where he was a little weakened or something. And every time I threw the battering at him, and the fact that it like slowed him down and knocked him down, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a sick boss fight. I'm going to knock him down. And then I just blow him through the floor. I go to get excited and nothing happens. That's all we do with him. So, again, I feel like there's a lot of wasted potential with a lot of these characters in this game, which is fine considering the game isn't, like, way too long. It's I don't know, 5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. It's not an overly long campaign by any means. The gadgets are all perfectly crafted to the experience. It really just came down to an underutilization of these bosses, a lack of enemy design, or variation, not design, a lack of enemy variation, and a combat system that isn't my favorite. It works for Batman, it really does. It's still not my favorite. I'm not going to say that, oh, my opinion on this style of combat changed. No, I still don't. I don't fucking like it. But this game makes it work. It makes it feel good. But let's get on to a boss fight that I fucked with. This boss fight I fucked with. And again, anytime Rocksteady got a chance with showing off Poison Ivy's ass, they must have had like 15 developers just handcrafting her ass, really making sure that they put hands-on feel for what those cheeks felt like. I mean, they probably put mocap on the actress's ass, and they made sure to put each one of those little balls on that butt cheek just so that they could get right next to her little starfish spot. And even her plant looks like a butthole. I mean, come on. And the fact that the best time to shoot your shot is when the butthole loosens and opens up. I mean, come on, that's pretty great boss design. And I always felt like I was mobile, and yeah, this is a gimmick boss, but it was a cool gimmick boss. This felt from Softy. I felt like, you know, in the Elden Ring, when you fight the really big snake boss with the gimmick weapon, that's what this felt like. And I was like, this is cool, this is fun. And I got my ass kicked pretty heavily because I didn't know what I was doing right away. I thought I was just supposed to like spam batarangs continuously. But I also usually lose a boss fight the first time I go into it because I'm kind of trying to read all of its different attacks and what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to like function it. But yeah, it was a fun boss fight. I had a good time the whole time. Even when I died once on that boss fight, and I was like, yeah, I'm still having a great time with this. This is cool. The thing, again, we're getting back to the combat, and I just wanted to highlight it one more time. The fact that I had to re-knock people out on the ground, it just always felt so tedious. And like, yeah, it's cool but look at the enemy design. We're getting that. It's like, oh, well, we got one with a t-shirt. Oh, we got one that's a different color. It's African-American gentleman. And then we got a white gentleman. And they're all friends because in prison, all the races are friends. That's just something I know. But you look at this Joker stuff right here. And this shows you how well crafted the Joker is as an enemy in this game. It's just like, this is so Joker. They really took the time. And yeah, they got a Mark Hamill and they got the original voice of the Batman from the animated television show. You could tell they were fans, and that's what this game is over anything else. Was a love letter to Batman in the old series, and it truly was a love letter, and it was nice to see something that was this much of a love letter and not a self-insert. Not a, like, oh, we gotta stroke our own egos. Oh, we gotta put this in. We gotta put this messaging in. We gotta make sure to highlight these, social issues in the game. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that. Let me just play the game that looks fun. And that's what this game did. It just let me play a game, let me experience being Batman. And that was top priority, was being Batman over anything else. And that's why this game is good. It's not focused on anything other than giving you a great Batman experience. And that's what this game truly delivers. Yes, does it have its pitfalls? Absolutely. And we're getting to one right here. I mean, I was so excited to really jump into the Joker boss fight. I'm like, what is it going to give me? And right before the boss fight happens, you fight these two giant jabronis. They come after you. You whoop their asses by using each other against each other. Like I told you, that is something cool about the mini boss fights in this game, especially when they throw a couple of these big guys at you. You can really, they don't ever feel like boss fights. They just feel like enemy encounters. And these guys were the highlight of the game, these big guys. I always had fun fighting them. I liked that you could pit them against each other. They were much more fun to fight than the, like, regular enemies. And that was cool. I enjoyed that. I liked that I get them to chase me. I throw a batarang at them. I get a cool finisher move. They felt like even though the enemies kind of feel a little spongy in this game, you never feel like Spider-Man spongy, right? You can deal with them pretty quick, but the big guys felt like the perfect amount of time to deal with them. And so when I was jumping into this Joker fight, I'm like, what is it going to do? How are we going to do this? Oh, he got Commissioner Gordon, even though he left the island. Somehow he had somebody go all the way back to Gotham and pick his ass up. And then Batman jumps in front of it, but he's got too much will to be turned into a monster. And then the Joker turns himself into a monster. And how's the Joker boss fight? Terrible. It's garbage, just flaming garbage. It's just not good. I don't know. It felt kind of underwhelming after a great gaming experience. And like I said, it was mostly mid-boss fights, but there was some standouts. Like Bane was good. Poison Ivy was amazing. And then this was just shit. It was boring. It was like not even like the Bane boss fight. It was just buff Joker that you pull down on the ground a couple times and punch. And then you don't even get to do the finishing blow. A lot of these boss fights have like 2 phases, not the Joker's. It's just a single phase one. You just kind of punch him with explosives. And that's it. That's the end of the game. Is the cinematic? Sure. But for me personally, it left a lot to be desired, and overall not a great way to end the game. And I know what you're thinking, well, how would have you done it differently? Well, I probably, when Bane showed up at the beginning, and the fact that he had a bat cave underneath Arkham Asylum, I would have put on like the iron bat suit and actually like knocked the Joker into like oblivion, especially when I already saw that he's kind of turning people into giant monsters. But again, this game is a 9 out of 10. This is a solid experience. I had a great time playing it, and I just figured that I wasn't going to sit here and suck the game off for 20 minutes. It's been done enough. I figured I'd highlight some of the things that I felt like needed highlighting. I figured, hey, I'll give my true opinion on the game. And though it sounded fairly negative, a lot of this is for jokes, and a lot of this is just because I wanted to give something different to a review on this video. I wanted to truly outline some of the things I don't feel like get outlined enough. And I believe I accomplished that. With that being said, like my videos, subscribe to my channel, and I'll catch you later.